My name is Dan Corbin. I was elected mayor in May of 2012. It's an honor to be here tonight for this first town hall meeting, which is also being televised and streamed live on www.killeentexas.gov. I hope to be able to do this more frequently. My purpose is, first of all, to give you a short address on where we are with the city, which I'm calling the State of the City address, not to be confused with the State of the Union or the State of the County that Judge Burrows will be doing on Wednesday. But I want to seize upon this opportunity to let you know some of the things that are going on and what's on the future agenda for the City of Killeen. After that short presentation, I will be taking questions from those of you in the audience, and after that I'll be reading some of the questions and giving answers to those questions that were submitted via email. And I'd like to report to you tonight that the state of our city is excellent. I believe that we are in sound financial condition. The books have been closed on the fiscal year 2011-2012. We actually finished that year with 2,000 less in the amount of expenditures. The city manager did a really effective job at controlling costs. So our actual fund balance is some $2 million more than what was budgeted when we approved the budget last summer. So that gives us a little bit of unexpected slack in our budget that I hope we'll be able to use productively for the taxpayers. The very first thing that happened whenever we took office on May 15th was we realized that we were short on experience. So we entered into a very strenuous training program where the council met on not only Tuesdays, but Tuesdays and Thursdays for about 6 weeks. And these meetings generally lasted 3 hours or so. We received a lot of briefings from the staff. And let me assure you that when you elected this council, you elected a bunch of hard-working people. The city council that is we have a slide of those members on the council. I'd like you to look at that for just a second. But in the council, we have a group of people that read their packets and study the materials before every meeting. They show up on time. In fact, they're early. Many of them are here tonight. We've had events that we've attended. For example, when the Chief of Staff of the Army, General Odierno, came here for a visit, there was a 7 a.m. breakfast on Fort Hood, and every single member of the City Council was present for that. Unprecedented. And the interest that this council takes is admirable and is noticed not only by those of us in the Killeen, but also those on Fort Hood and those in the surrounding communities. I think you should be proud of your council. Let me also assure you that we don't agree on everything, but we respect each other's opinions. And we discuss all the issues, we vote, and move on. And the minority buys in. On 4-3 votes, there's not grumbling or really a lot of people upset. We just move on. We're trying to do the business of the people, and I think we're doing it well. After the initial training session, we had to take care of a lot of the backlog that went on. We had no city government for 6 months, from November of 2011 until May 15th of 2012. The first order of business was to elect as our city manager Glenn Morrison. Should be a picture of his smiling face coming up there for y'all to see. And Glenn was not a stranger to us on the council. He'd been working for the city of Killeen for nearly 25 years, and he had been the acting city manager for over a year at the time that we took office. So he was a known quantity, and we had a choice at that time of having a search committee go out and look at unknowns and see if they could do a better job, or just go ahead, hire the city manager, move on with the budget process, and see how that worked out. So we did a short-term contract that will be coming up for renewal here in a few months. And we will do an evaluation and determine whether or not to give him an additional year. The contract with him does not call for a large payout if we terminate his employment. We think that it's been working pretty well so far, but we will do an evaluation of him in a few months. The next order of business for the council, in addition to getting rid of the backlog of almost 20 planning and zoning issues that had been pending many for months, we took care of those in a relatively short period of time, and then set about adopting the budget for fiscal year 2012-2013. And we adopted a budget that called for no tax increases. We have a fairly high tax rate in the city of Killeen. One of the reasons we have such a high tax rate is because much of our tax base is on federal property. The school district here receives about $50 million a year or so from the federal government for impact aid to recognize the fact that the tax base here doesn't exist, it's on federal land. The city of Killeen receives no such stipend from the federal government, so we have to learn how to cope with dealing with providing all the services for our citizens, the adequate police, fire, without the benefit of that large tax base and without any sort of federal impact aid. Our budget called for the hiring of 12 new police officers. It's been the goal of the city of Killeen for some time to have police officers on a ratio of about 1 for every 2,000 citizens. I'm sorry, 2 for every 1,000 citizens. So at 132,000, that would require us to be at about 264. We were at 243. So we really wanted to hire more police officers. We simply could not afford to, in one move, handle that kind of increase because it costs a significant amount to add a police officer. It takes a significant amount of time to train those police officers. But we are moving in the right direction with regard to that issue. Our budget also included the design work for our next fire station number 9. That fire station will be located in the southwest portion of the city, and that will help us greatly cover that area. We are fortunate in this community to have a rating called an ISO rating of 2. Let me tell you what that means. In June of last year, you should have noticed about a 15% decrease in your casualty insurance rates for the city of Killeen. And that's because of the fact that we have, through the efforts that have gone many years, created a water distribution system, above ground and ground storage tanks sufficient to provide the water needed to fight fires in this community. We've stepped up, built the fire stations and manned them properly and equipped them correctly so that we could receive a rating that less than 1% of the cities have. So that reflects itself in lower insurance premiums for our citizens. We also provided a cost of living adjustment for our employees. We are fortunate in this town to have really dedicated employees. Many of them work for less pay than they could get in other sectors, but we need to keep our employees, we need to keep their morale up and keep them on the payroll because it costs an awful lot to retrain employees, to hire new employees, to fill vacancies. One of the other things that we did when we approved the budget was to approve a reorganization. And if you look at the present organizational structure of the city of Killeen, you can see that the city manager has 2 assistant city managers working under him. The first hire was the external city manager, assistant city manager, and that was John Sutton. The second assistant city manager was just hired, and that's Dr. Ann Ferris. Before these 2 assistant city manager positions, all of these departments, the 12 departments were all under one person. The span of control simply does not allow someone to efficiently manage that many people. The way the new organization is, the police, fire, city attorney, and public information office still comes directly under the city manager, and other departments are under the assistant city manager. That span of control is conducive with efficient organizational structure and effective management. The next thing that I want to tell you about is how the city has been progressing with some of our plans. We have a comprehensive land use plan that we will continue to look at in the future, but as part of the overall plan of the city, we have to look at how we're going to grow. And one of the most important plans on how we're going to grow is our water and sewer master plan. Every 3 or 4 years, we have an updated master plan done. This year was done by the engineering firm of Freese and Nichols, and they have planned in 3-year increments what infrastructure needs to be put in the ground in terms of the big sewer pipes and the big water distribution pipes to support our growth. Most of our growth will be toward the south, and we don't put all the water lines in for the developments, but we basically have water that gets to the developments, and the developers run all the pipes in the ground in their developments. The sewer pipes and the water pipes are put in by the developers. The developers put in the streets. Whenever that's all finished, those streets are dedicated to the city along with the water and sewer infrastructure. Our plan, in order to put all these pipes in the ground, so to speak, in terms of sewer and water, is going to cost us approximately $139 million over the next 21 years in these 3-year cycles. We are looking at issuing another $20 million or so in bonds within the next few months to be able to fund the expansion of our infrastructure. What this council has decided to do, and I think it's a really good move, is not just to invest in putting in new infrastructure, but to use about 40% of this money in each of the future bond issuances to renovate and rehabilitate the older pipes in the ground. We have a system that would cost some nearly $300 million to replace. We need to maintain it because it's a lot cheaper to maintain it than it is to replace it. So some of those old sewer and water infrastructure will be rehabbed on a continuous basis for years to come. Another thing that is being done is an $8 million expansion of the Killeen Municipal Airport. Most of this is funded by the FAA and also by the passenger facility charges that the airlines pay to the city for using the facilities. Every person that lands there, there's a certain dollar amount that goes to the city, and that can only be used for those kind of improvements to the airport that pertain to the passengers. So we're going to increase the holding room capacity and the food court area. Whenever we have charters that are being used and more than one flight in there at a time, some of those holding rooms get rather packed, and we see the need to expand those. Also, the baggage handling and inspection system is being entirely renovated. We were the first airport to be built under the new security rules after 9/11. That was kind of some uncharted territory at that time. Now we have, the FAA has experience on how to handle that, so a design can be done that is much more effective, much more efficient. The city portion of $647,000 roughly is being paid for by the passenger facility charges through the airlines, and the rest of it are grants that are being paid for by the federal government. Certainly one of the key parts of any city is how we get around. We certainly recognize that as our population has grown over the years, traffic has become more of a problem. And the council is very cognizant of the fact that we need to continue to remedy areas of congestion. There are some $150 million in state and local road projects that are either being finished or under construction or are coming soon. We're all looking forward to the widening of Highway 190 from the main gate to 2410. That's going to be over $50 million just for that project. We have, right now 2 lanes, and during the entire construction period, we're going to continue to have 2 lanes. But it's going to be kind of a mess getting through that. So everyone's going to have to be patient during the 3 years or so that that's under construction. We're also having major construction being done in the area of the Rosewood Assisted Living Center. There will be a street coming in from the south that will kind of relieve some of the pressure off of Stan Schluter and Chance Drive and some of those other areas where we have a lot of traffic congestion. That Rosewood Drive should be able to handle a lot of traffic heading north-south on the eastern part of our town. When that Rosewood hits the Central Texas Expressway 190, it will be on the level plane, and US 190 will have an overpass that will go over Rosewood. That will dump out on 2410 by the golf course, and that 2410 will be widened to 5 lanes. It'll have 2 lanes in each direction and a turn lane going from Stan Schluter on up to the city limits of Harker Heights. And I hope that Harker Heights is going to be funding some sort of a construction project to tie that all the way back to where the new overpass is being constructed by Knight's Way. Cunningham Road has been finished. It's now open for our citizens who've had to endure the construction over there for the last couple of years. I'm sure you all are pleased about that. People on Stagecoach who use that, you've been putting up with it for a while. You're going to put up with it for longer because there are several other projects on Stagecoach that are either they're working on now or they're on the drawing board. The Bunny Trail from Stan Schluter to 201 is going to be finished up. Portions of that are 5-lane now, but the rest of that's coming in. The long-awaited Elms Road project that'll go from 195 west to the area where Shoemaker High School is on Clear Creek. That will be done at some point in the near future. But we're looking forward to these projects to help us get around better. One of the other projects that you can see just a few blocks away from City Hall is the streetscaping project that is going on in the downtown area. It, along with the expansion of the hike and bike trail from the area of the community center on W.S. Young to the downtown area, is a little over $5 million. Most of that came to us from a grant from the Texas Department of Transportation. Much of it focused on the hike and bike trail, but that is going to, we hope, make the downtown area a much more viable place for businesses to locate. A city that lets its downtown die is a city that is not progressive and is not forward-thinking and generally ends up in a bad situation. So we want to try to keep our downtown area alive. Over the last 10 years, there have been a lot of improvements in the downtown area. And if you drive through there, if you think back to how it was 10 years ago, it may be hard to remember now, but if you go block by block, you can see that many improvements have been made in the downtown area, and many more need to be made over the next 10 years. There will be a stakeholders meeting Thursday at 5:30 p.m. at the Killeen Arts and Activities Center. That's the old First Baptist Church, which is a great facility that is being used by the city to house a lot of activities that benefit the city. There's a performing arts center in there, just lots of good office space that the city is using and other nonprofit organizations are using, and part of the space is being rented to a charter school. In the future of this city, there's already a sign up near the corner of 2410 and Martin Luther King, in the area where Stan Schluter runs into 2410, in the area of the old municipal airport, Skylark Field. There's a sign up there that says Las Cascadas. That's going to be some 70-acre business shopping center, laid out kind of equivalent to market heights in terms of not a mall per se, but a lot of the buildings laid out like that. That's going to be a high-end development. They're also going to have some multifamily and single-family housing in there on the northern end of that. But that's one of the projects that we've been working on for some years. As I have some slides here where you can see what the downtown area is going to look like as far as the artist's conception. Avenue D and Avenue C will be laid out where there's more vegetation, and it's going to be much more friendly for people to walk in that area. If you've been down there lately, you can see that much of the curbing has already been done on Avenue D, and the sidewalks have been reconstructed. The next slide there shows the picture of what an intersection is going to look like either on Avenue D and Gray or Avenue D and 8th Street. But it's really laid out where we think that businesses are going to want to locate there. And I think that with the addition of some economic incentives that we can get more of the desired kinds of businesses to locate in that area, possibly creating an entertainment district or something that's going to draw people there. We need additional venues in our community for college students and for young soldiers. Our community lacks many of the amenities that we should have for entertainment and recreation for people in their early 20s. In the future, we need to address our future water needs. Let me assure you that we have sufficient raw water to see us for more than 30 years. We have, in the past, entered into contracts to lock up water rights, water that we pay for every year that we don't use, because we had an opportunity to get it many years ago, and we got it, and now people who want water can't get it, but we have it for when we need it. And that's a good thing. The state legislature is grappling with the whole concept of what to do with raw water, because many municipalities have not planned and paid for water like the city of Killeen has. And the question is, are they going to let them dry up? How are they going to handle those issues? The state has been reluctant to fund a water plan, and it's going to cost like trillions to do that. To build an additional reservoir can certainly take more than 30 years, and the state needs to start working on that. We may reach in 2013 a critical point where we have a peak day where we use 85% of our treatment capacity for our water. Our water is currently treated by Water Control and Improvement District Number 1 in a facility out on Lake Belton. When we